just to refresh your memory. We reached a stage where we said there was a correlation. And the correlation was such that you had texts that said that the kings of the Pyramid Age described in the Pyramid text how they believed that they were going to be converted into a physical body, into a spiritual body, or an astral body, and somehow be sent to the stars. And the stars, they were Orion, constellation Orion, because they believed that this was the afterworld kingdom. It was the land, the heavenly land in the sky, belonging to the god Gonzales, the originator, the founder of the Egyptian civilization. And we said that there were shafts inside the Great Pyramid that pointed to Orion's belt. We talked about the astronomy of the pyramid. And we showed that, well, what makes this correlation rather difficult to accept as a coincidence, it isn't just three dots, three stars mimicking three pyramids on the ground. And it isn't just because we have text. It is, as I made a big deal about this, the little offset, or the offset of the small star, if you remember. It's one of those things that it's very, very, very difficult to absorb as a coincidence. And we talked about the pigeons, remember? We got into a pigeon 5. Well, that's the correlation. So you have three stars, small one offset, three pyramids, small one offset. But the angle that the stars make in the sky, when they cross the meridian, when they cross the southern part of the sky, you're aware that stars or celestial bodies rise in the east, yes, and they rise, reach their highest point in what we call the meridian, which is due south, and then they set in the west. So when these stars reach their culmination, their highest point, in the alignment of the shafts, they do not match what's on the ground in terms of angle. And we said yesterday that, well, that was that. And I explained that this was a kind of threshold. It's one of those moments where you arrive, when anybody who has developed something different from the consensus. You know, I'm thinking of Copernicus, of Newton, of Einstein, of anybody who has proposed something which is against the consensus, that's going to change it. The trouble is that he's going to take a leap here. He knows, whoever is going to do this, he knows that he's going to upset the whole status quo because they've all agreed on something and you're going to upset them. Well, what I had to do was to consider another date. You know, the stars do not match in 2500 BC, the date that Egyptologists had allocated to these monuments. I'm going to go a bit to the west. Well, and so the thing is, can we try another date? Now, if you are an Egyptologist and you're born and bred and raised and taught as an Egyptologist and you're so influenced by your peers, you're not going to move from this date. But I wasn't. And I said, okay, let's try another date. And the date we chose, I chose with Hancock at the time, was to say the Egyptians spoke of an early period. They called it the first time. Remember, we called it Zep Tepi. Zep Tepi literally means first time. And if the first time, as they tell us, is the time when Osiris came from the stars and set in motion the Egyptian civilization, then he is represented by these stars. Could these stars have a first time? And indeed they do. And this is where we get into precession. I explained precession very briefly. I'll go through it in a minute again for the Sphinx. You can use the precession of the equinoxes. This means that you can change the position of the stars. In fact, it is the Earth that is moving. I explained this yesterday, but the apparent position of the stars change. And they change in altitude and they change in angle. And so we went to what we call the beginning of the precession cycle. For the Orion belt stars, it is 10,500 BC. And when we did that, I used the computer at the time, another primitive one, we're talking about 1996 here. There was a program called Star Globe, if I remember. One of the very early programs. You can do that nowadays with very sophisticated programs. It takes you a few seconds to punch in the date, and you'll see the virtual reality of the sky changing. And lo and behold, what happened is the stars took the position locked with the alignment of the pyramids on the ground. And that was too good to be true. I mean, the coincidence began to be at level 5 pigeon. You weren't here yesterday, but we kind of made a metaphor about if a pigeon comes in this room, you say, well, it's a coincidence, then you get a second pigeon, and you say, well, odd coincidence. Third pigeon, you begin to doubt. Fourth pigeon, maybe fifth pigeon, you say it's not a coincidence. But some people can go up to 10 pigeons before they say it's not a coincidence, and others, you can go forever and still say it's a coincidence. So we're dealing with that kind of wide. What happened to pictures? All right, thank you. So, that's what happened. But these stars, let's see if I have this procession. So, schematically, this is what happens. If you were somewhere near the pyramid and you were observing Orion's belt over the full precession cycle, which you couldn't because it takes 26,000 years and you'd be long dead, but you can do it with a computer. It takes you a few seconds. You push a button and so we can do it today. And if you do that, you find that the stars of Orion go to a maximum point. We're nearly there, by the way. I did this diagram in 2000, but 2016. They're kind of reaching their maximum height. They're kind of at the end of the clockwork, if you like. Very odd, but there you are. And from there on, they will start going down again. So they started somewhere here. And if you go to the beginning of this precession cycle, you come to the date of 10,500 BC. It's a fact. It's not hypothetical. It's not a theory. It's a fact. In fact, by the way, all I'm telling you are astronomical facts. So this is why this theory are very, very solid, because you can argue whether it is just a coincidence, but you can't argue against the facts. And this is where you get the scientists thinking very carefully, because they like facts, they like evidence. So it's a fact that they reach this point, and when they do reach this point, they turn, or they appear to turn, and fit what's on the ground. But it only happens in 10,500 BC. But something else happens when they turn, and they're on alignment with the pyramid in 10,500 BC. They happen to be right there, due south, on the meridian, on the day of the spring equinox. Now, the spring equinox, I explained later again, for a few words here, is when the sun rises due east. So if I was the sun, we have the easterners and the westerners, right? Okay, I'm going to be the sun for a few minutes, right? So east, west, I have to look in this direction. Imagine that this is the eastern horizon. The eastern horizon. Now, I would be at the extreme north of the eastern horizon if it was the summer solstice, which today is around the 21st of June. And then slowly, 6 months later, I'll be at the other side. The sun's been doing this since the creation of this planet. It will do this for millions of years to come. It always does this at sunrise. In fact, it is us that's moving, but the appearance of sunrise. But at midpoint are the equinoxes. And of course, I cross the midpoint twice, from here to there and back. So we have the spring equinox and then the autumn equinox. Alright? So the midpoint is due east, whereas this is north, southeast, and this is northeast. Alright? Yes? You got it? So they do, the stars that are in the sky behind me, if you imagine Orion's belt behind me, they're there in 10,500 BC, they mimic what's on the ground, but they're at this point, and only 10,500 BC, only when the sun is rising at spring equinox. The sun is here. due east. And we know what happens is several things lock into place. The three stars of Orion's belt match the three pyramids on the ground, and you have the Nile, it's meandering all the way here, that match. I don't know if it's, I'll have to do the westerners as well. You see the Milky Way here matches the Nile on the ground. They call this the celestial Nile. You have a kind of map on the sky that is matching what's on the ground. But, and that's the sexy bit, there is another monument on this site that is indeed looking due east. So while all this is happening in 10,500 BC, there is another monument, and that of course is the Sphinx, and it's looking, there it is here, a bit of a blotch here, I have pictures later, it's looking in this direction, it's looking due east.
Going to contact in the desert was an experience I'll never forget. Are UFOs, heathens, or ancient astronauts real? I'm for certain we are being visited, but the verdict is still undecided about the truth of our past and future.